She humiliated me on a rooftop for Instagram likes. 50 witnesses. Millions of views. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I vanished that night with nothing but a backpack and a plan I've been building for months. 2 years later, she tracked me to Montana. How'd you survive? She begged. My answer was 2 words. She fell to her knees sobbing. Those 2 words destroyed her more than any prank ever could. My name is Wyatt Reynolds. I'm 41 years old, and I used to be married to one of the most popular beauty influencers in Portland. Used to be. That's the key phrase here. The night it all fell apart started like any other high-profile event Kim dragged me to. Rooftop party in downtown Portland, 38th floor, string lights hanging like stars, the kind of sunset that made people forget they were drinking overpriced drinks and pretending to like each other. Kim had been buzzing all week about this party. Some brand launch, some collaboration. I stopped keeping track after the 5th "This is huge for my career" speech. I wore the shirt she picked out. Navy blue. She said it photographed well. I smiled when she aimed her phone at me. I played the role of supportive husband, because that's what you do, right? You support the person you love, even when that love starts feeling one-sided. The champagne flute hit the marble floor at exactly 8:47 p.m. I remember because I just checked my watch, wondering how much longer we'd be there. Kim threw it. Not dropped it. Threw it. The crystal exploded at my feet, golden liquid spreading across the white stone like a spotlight finding its mark. The crowd went silent. All eyes turned toward us. Kim's face transformed. Tears welled up in her perfectly lined eyes. Her lip trembled. Mascara began its calculated descent down her cheeks. She practiced that look. I'd seen it before, in her bathroom, in front of her ring light, perfecting the art of looking devastated. "I can't do this anymore," she announced, her voice carrying across the rooftop with theatrical precision. Every head turned. Every phone lifted. "Tell them, Wyatt. Tell them what you told me." I stood there, champagne soaking into my shoes, confused. We hadn't fought. We'd barely spoken all week. She'd been too busy with her content calendar. Her sister Jessica appeared beside her, right on cue. Kim's hand went to her chest. Fingers splayed dramatically. "He's been lying to me for years. About everything. We're done." The words came to me like punches. Lies. What lies? I opened my mouth, but she kept going, feeding lines to an audience that ate up every word. People whispered. Phones recorded. Someone laughed nervously. I saw Tom Bradford, my colleague from the manufacturing plant, standing near the bar, his face a mixture of pity and secondhand embarrassment. Then Kim's expression changed. The tears stopped. A smile broke across her face like sunrise. She threw her arms up and shouted, "Just kidding. It's a prank." The rooftop erupted. Some people laughed, uncertain at first, then louder. Others clapped. Her sister high-fived her. Someone yelled, "Oh my God, you're insane." Another voice called out, "That was brutal." Kim pulled me into a hug that felt like a straitjacket, her phone already in her hand, checking the reactions, the comments rolling in real time. I stood there, still as stone, while the party resumed around me. The music came back on. People went back to their drinks. But something inside me had stopped working. Not broken, just stopped. Like a machine that finally gives up after too many cycles. Kim was already scrolling through her phone, reading comments out loud to Jessica. "Look, 15,000 likes already. This is going to blow up." I walked to the edge of the rooftop, looked out at the Portland skyline, and understood with absolute clarity that the man I used to be had just died at that party. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly, between one breath and the next. When I turned back, Kim was filming a follow-up video. She didn't notice me leave. The apartment was quiet when I got home. Kim stayed at the party, naturally. More content to create, more reactions to capture. I could picture her surrounded by admirers, retelling the story of her brilliant prank, her phone lighting up with notifications like a slot machine hitting jackpot. I stood in our bedroom doorway and looked at the space we'd shared for 6 years. Her ring light dominated the corner, tripods leaning against the wall, boxes of makeup samples stacked like inventory. Our wedding photo sat on the dresser, buried behind bottles of serums and foundations. I couldn't remember the last time either of us looked at it. The shower turned on down the hall. She was home. I heard her humming, that carefree sound she made when the day had gone exactly as planned. While steam filled the bathroom, I moved with purpose. My laptop came out first. I logged into the finance app Kim had deleted months ago because, as she'd said, the interface was ugly and cluttered her phone. That ugly interface had been quietly moving money for 7 months. Small transfers. Nothing she'd notice. 500 here, 1,000 there. Into accounts she didn't know existed, under structures my attorney Douglas Shepard had set up. Douglas. I'd called him 8 months ago, right after Kim's joke about how I was replaceable went viral. She'd laughed it off. Her followers loved it. I'd smiled for the camera and started planning. I pulled the fireproof box from the back of my closet. Inside, my passport, birth certificate, 3,000 in cash, copies of every important document. I added tonight's paperwork, documents Douglas had prepared months ago, just waiting for the right moment. That moment was now. My phone sat on a nightstand, fully charged. I picked it up, scrolled through our text history. Kim's last message. Don't wait up. Going to Morgan's after party. This video is blowing up. 3 fire emojis. No question about how I felt. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. I dialed Douglas. He answered on the second ring. Voice rough with sleep. It's time, I said. My voice was steady. Douglas Shepard didn't ask questions. He'd been my father's attorney, then mine. When I'd first approached him about Kim, about her changing behavior, about needing protection, he called me paranoid. 3 months later, after watching her turn our anniversary dinner into a sponsored post, he'd apologized and drawn up the papers. I'll file first thing Monday morning, Douglas said. You sure about this? Through the bathroom door, I heard Kim's phone ping. Another notification. Another stranger laughing at the husband she'd humiliated for content. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. I hung up and sat in the dark, listening to my wife celebrate in the shower. The man she'd married would have talked to her, would have tried to work it out. But that man died tonight on a rooftop, surrounded by strangers with cameras. This version of me knew better. I left at 4:17 a.m. No dramatic exit. No note. No final look back. Just a man walking out of his own life with a backpack and a purpose. Kim was passed out on the couch, phone still in her hand, half-empty glass of rose on the coffee table. Her latest video was paused on the screen. Me, standing there with champagne at my feet, looking like I'd been gutted. The caption read, When your husband can't take a joke. Part 1 of our prank series. Part 1. She was already planning more. I placed my wedding ring on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker, right where she'd see it. Not for drama, just marking the end. My truck was parked 3 blocks away, exactly where I'd left it 2 days ago. A 2015 Ford F-150, registered to a Delaware LLC that didn't connect to my name. Douglas had handled that 6 months back, along with a post office box in Vancouver, Washington, and the storage unit where I'd been moving things piece by piece. The safe deposit box at First National opened at 6. I was waiting when the doors unlocked. Inside, my grandfather's watch, the deed to a property in Montana Kim never knew I bought, and $40,000 in cash I'd pulled from accounts she couldn't trace. Douglas had been thorough. Every transfer legal, every document signed by both of us. Kim just never read what she was signing. Too busy filming herself for the camera. By 7, I was on I-84 heading east. Portland disappeared in my rearview mirror. My phone sat on the passenger seat, powered on for now. By noon, it would be in pieces at the bottom of the Columbia River. The burner phone stayed off. Douglas had the number. Nobody else. At a rest stop near Hood River, I bought coffee and studied my reflection in the men's room mirror. 41 years old. Mechanical engineer. Husband. Soon to be none of those things. The man looking back at me wasn't broken. He was free. I thought about the video, about strangers laughing at my humiliation. Let them laugh. They were watching a ghost. The real me was already gone. Kim would wake up around 10, maybe 11. She'd check her phone first. Always did. Then she'd notice the ring. Maybe she'd call. Maybe she'd assume I was sulking at a hotel somewhere, waiting for her to apologize. She'd be wrong. By the time Kim realized I wasn't coming back, I'd be 500 miles away, and the paper trail would lead nowhere. Kim woke up at 10:43 a.m. with her neck stiff from sleeping on the couch. Her phone battery was at 3%. She plugged it in and immediately opened Instagram. The prank video had blown up overnight. 800,000 views, 12,000 comments. Her follower count had jumped by 15,000. She scrolled through comments, smiling. This is hilarious. Your husband's face though. Relationship goals, honestly. Then she saw the other ones. This isn't funny. You publicly humiliated him. That man looked destroyed. Kim rolled her eyes. People were too sensitive. It was just a prank. Wyatt would get over it. He always did. She walked to the kitchen, still in last night's dress, and stopped. Her wedding ring sat on the counter. Next to it, Wyatt's ring. Wyatt, she called out. Silence. She checked the bedroom. Empty. His side of the closet looked the same, but something felt off. She couldn't put her finger on it. Kim called his phone. Straight to voicemail. She texted, Okay, you made your point. This is childish. No response. By noon, she called his work. Tom Bradford answered, sounding awkward. Kim, hey, Wyatt's not here. Can you tell him to call me? Kim said, He's not. Kim, he quit. 2 weeks ago. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. What? Tom cleared his throat. He gave his notice a while back. Said he was relocating. I thought you knew. Kim hung up. Relocating? They hadn't discussed moving. They hadn't discussed anything. She tried logging into their joint bank account. Password invalid. She tried the mortgage account. Access denied. The streaming services, the grocery delivery app. Everything came back with the same message. Account not found. Her hand shook as she dialed her sister Jessica. Jess, something's wrong. Kim said when Jessica answered. Wyatt's gone. Like, actually gone. Jessica laughed. He's probably just teaching you a lesson. You did kind of destroy him last night. No, you don't understand. He quit his job. The accounts are closed. He's not answering his phone. Wait, seriously. Jessica's tone shifted. Kim, how long has he been gone? Kim looked at the rings on the counter. I don't know. I fell asleep on the couch. He could have left hours ago. Maybe he just needs space, Jessica said, but she didn't sound convinced. Kim walked through the apartment again, looking for clues. His laptop was gone. His work bag. The fireproof box from the closet. Empty. She went back to the kitchen and noticed something else. The coffee maker was still set to brew at 6 a.m., his usual time. But the pot was empty. He'd never turn it on. He'd left before dawn. Kim hired a private investigator on day 4. His name was Vincent Cole, ex-cop turned PI. Kim recommended from a Facebook group for influencers dealing with difficult situations. She met him at a Starbucks in downtown Portland. I need you to find my husband, Kim said, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside, photos of Wyatt, his truck description, the last known location from Find My Phone before it went dark. Vincent flipped through the materials. How long's he been gone? 4 days. You file a missing persons report? Kim shifted in her seat. Not yet. I don't want the police involved. This needs to be handled quietly. Vincent raised an eyebrow. Why? Because the last thing she needed was news headlines. Beauty influencer's husband disappears after viral prank. Her sponsors were already getting nervous. 3 had sent checking in emails. 1 had quietly paused their upcoming campaign. It's complicated, Kim said. Can you find him or not? Vincent took the job. $5,000 up front, daily updates. He started with the obvious. Wyatt's phone records, credit cards, work contacts. Everything came back empty. The phone was off. No credit card activity. His former colleagues at the manufacturing plant claimed they hadn't heard from him. Your husband's either off-grid or he's good at hiding, Vincent reported after a week. Real good. Kim's Instagram was bleeding followers. Not a flood, but a steady drip. 10,000 gone in 5 days. The comments on her prank video had turned toxic. She disabled commenting, but screenshots circulated on Twitter and Reddit. Threads titled Beauty Influencer Destroys Marriage for Content and the Cruelty of Modern Narcissism. Her sister Jessica came over with wine and sympathy. Maybe you just need space, Jessica said. Men get weird when their pride's hurt. It's been a week, Jess. Kim's voice was tight. His phone is off. He cleared out accounts I didn't even know he had. This isn't hurt pride. This is something else. What did he take? Jessica asked. Kim had inventoried the apartment 3 times. Barely anything. Some clothes. His laptop. That old photo of his dad. Everything else is still here. That's good, right? Means he's coming back. But Kim knew better. A man who takes only what matters isn't planning to return. Vincent called that night. Found something. Gas station footage from Hood River. Morning he left. Paid cash. Bought coffee. Drove east on I-84. That's where the trail goes cold. East where? Kim demanded. Could be anywhere. Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. He's got a 10-day head start. If he doesn't want to be found, I can't promise anything. Kim ended the call, and stared at her phone. Her latest sponsored post, a skincare routine video, had gotten half the usual engagement. Brand were watching. Followers were leaving. And Wyatt was gone. She opened her messages, typed, "I'm sorry. Please just tell me you're okay." Sent to a number that would never receive it. Montana hit different. The air was cleaner, the sky bigger, the silence louder than any noise I'd left behind. I've been here 2 weeks, working at a veterans shelter outside Missoula, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. The shelter was called Second Chance Ranch, run by a Vietnam vet named Frank Donovan. 68 years old, tough as leather, didn't ask questions when I showed up looking for volunteer work. Just handed me a hammer and pointed at a barn that needed rebuilding. I worked alongside other volunteers. Most were younger, college kids on gap years, idealists trying to save the world. Then there was Mason Clark, 16 years old, angry at everything, son of a Marine who died in Afghanistan 3 years back. Mason reminded me of myself at that age. All edges, no polish, looking for somewhere to put the rage. You gonna stand there or actually help? Mason said on my 3rd day, watching me measure timber. I looked at him. You gonna keep running your mouth or learn something? Mason's jaw tightened, but he grabbed the other end of the 2x4. We worked in silence for an hour. By the end, he was asking questions about load-bearing weight and proper bracing. Kid was smart, just needed direction. Your old man teach you this? Mason asked as we stacked finish boards. Some of it, I said. Learned the rest from making mistakes. My dad wanted me to join up. Mason said quietly. Marines like him. But I don't know if I'm made for that. I set down my hammer. You don't have to be what your father was to honor him. Mason looked at me like I'd unlocked something. We didn't talk much after that, but he started showing up earlier, staying later, working harder. Frank pulled me aside one evening. Kid's different since you got here. More focused. I shrugged. He just needed someone to treat him like a man instead of a problem. Speaking of problems, Frank said, you running from something or towards something? Bit of both, I admitted. Frank nodded. Fair enough. Long as you do good work here, your past stays your business. At night, lying in the small trailer Frank let me use, I'd think about Kim. Wonder if she'd hired someone to find me. Wonder if she'd figured out that I wasn't hiding. I'd simply disappeared. My burner phone stayed off except for weekly check-ins with Douglas. He'd confirmed the divorce papers were filed, sent to Kim's address via certified mail. She hadn't responded yet, probably still hoping I'd come crawling back. I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. There's a difference. Mason knocked on my trailer door one night, held out a beer. Thought you might want company. We sat on the porch, watching stars crowd the Montana sky. You ever regret leaving something behind? Mason asked. Every day, I said. But regret doesn't mean I made the wrong choice. Kim's world continued to crumble. 2 months after Wyatt disappeared, a book appeared on Amazon. The Silent Exit. When Good Men Walk Away. No author name, just anonymous. She wouldn't have noticed except Tiffany Rhodes, a rival beauty influencer with 400,000 followers, posted about it. Reading this book about men who quietly leave toxic relationships, really making me think about how we treat our partners for content. Powerful stuff. The post had 80,000 likes. Comments poured in. Is this about that prank lady? Her husband literally vanished after she humiliated him. This book is making me rethink everything. Kim bought the book. Started reading at midnight. By page 30, she was shaking. The story wasn't exactly hers, but close enough. A man married to someone who valued attention over authenticity. Public humiliation disguised as humor. The slow erosion of dignity. The careful planning of an escape. Every detail felt like a mirror. Chapter 12 broke her. She asked why I left. I didn't leave because I hated her. I left because she couldn't see me anymore. To her, I was a prop in someone else's show. Kim threw the book across the room, then picked it up and kept reading. The book climbed bestseller lists. Number 14 on the New York Times. Podcasts discussed it. Book clubs dissected it. And everyone connected it back to that viral prank video. Her Instagram became a graveyard. Followers dropped to 140,000. Brands ghosted her. Even Jessica stopped defending her online. Vincent Cole called with an update. Found property records. Your husband owns land in Montana. Bought it 3 years ago under an LLC. 3 years. Kim's voice was hollow. He's been planning this for 3 years. The purchase date suggests he started preparing long before the prank, Vincent said carefully. This wasn't a reaction, Mrs. Reynolds. This was an exit strategy. That night, Kim posted video. No makeup, no filter, just her sitting on her couch looking exhausted. I made a mistake, she said to the camera. A huge mistake. I thought humiliating my husband was funny. I thought your likes mattered more than his feelings. I was wrong. Wyatt, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The video got 200,000 views. Half the comments were sympathetic. The other half said it was too late. That sorry doesn't fix what's broken. Kim knew they were right. She found herself reading The Silent Exit, again, this time slower, really absorbing the words. One passage haunted her. The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was accepting that the woman I loved had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. She closed the book and wept. 2 years after I left Portland, I was rebuilding a storage shed at Second Chance Ranch when a photographer showed up. Magazine piece about veterans programs, he said. Wouldn't mind being in some shots. I almost said no. Then Frank Donovan gave me a look that said, don't be difficult. So I agreed, figuring it to be background stuff, nothing identifiable. The photographer, young guy named Aaron, followed me around for an afternoon. Took photos of me hauling timber, measuring cuts, working alongside Mason, who'd become something like the little brother I never had. This place does good work, Aaron said between shots. How long you been volunteering? 2 years, give or take, I said. You local? I am now. He didn't push for details. I appreciated that. The magazine came out 3 months later. Montana Living, a regional outdoor publication. The article was titled, Rebuilding Lives, the quiet volunteers behind Montana's forgotten veterans. I was on page 72, mid-lift, carrying a 2x8 across the muddy clearing. The caption read, Volunteers work to restore the northern wing before winter sets in. No name, just a photo. I didn't think much of it until Frank showed me his phone a week later. You seeing this? Someone had posted the photo online with the caption, Isn't this the guy from that prank video? Comments debated whether it was really me. Some said yes. Others weren't sure. The beard threw people off. So did the fact that I looked healthier, stronger, different. Then Kim found it. I didn't know immediately. I was out in the shed with Mason, teaching him how to properly joint wood, when my burner phone buzzed. Douglas Shepard. You need to prepare yourself, Douglas said. Kim knows you're in Montana. She found a magazine photo. My sources say she's making plans to come out there. I set down my tools. Mason looked at me, concerned. You okay? Mason asked. You look like you saw a ghost. Something like that, I said. That night, I sat on my trailer porch, whiskey in hand, watching the stars. 2 years of peace, about to be interrupted. Part of me wanted to run again, disappear deeper into the wilderness. But another part, the part that had rebuilt itself out here, knew running wouldn't solve anything. She wanted to find me? Fine. Let her come. But she'd be meeting a different man than the one who left that Portland apartment. That man was soft, willing to bend, hoping for change. This version of me had been forged in Montana winters and hard work. This version didn't need her approval or her apology. Mason found me there an hour later. Frank said some woman might be coming around asking about you. Yeah, I said. Someone from my old life. You want me to run interference? Mason's protective instinct kicked in. Kid had grown a lot in 2 years. No, this is something I need to handle myself. She trouble. I thought about that. She used to be my wife. Mason nodded slowly. The one you walked away from? That's the one. You regret leaving? I looked at the kid who'd gone from angry and lost to focused and capable. Thought about the work we'd done here, the lives we'd touched, the man I'd become. Not for a second, I said. The diner was exactly what you'd expect in rural Montana. Cracked vinyl booths, coffee that could strip paint, and a jukebox that hadn't worked since Carter was president. I arrived early, sat in booth 6 with my back to the wall, old habit from too many construction sites where you learn to watch your surroundings. Douglas Shepard sat across from me, legal pad and reading glasses out, looking every bit the attorney who'd seen it all. You sure you want me here? Douglas asked. I don't trust her, I said simply, and I want a witness. Kim arrived at 7:15, 15 minutes late. She'd always been late to things that mattered to me, early to things that mattered to her followers. Some habits don't break. She looked different, thinner, less polished, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No ring light to perfect her angles. Just a woman who'd lost something she didn't appreciate until it was gone. She stopped when she saw Douglas. Who's he? My attorney, I said. Douglas Shepard. You remember him. You signed a lot of his paperwork without reading it. Kim's face paled. She slid into the booth across from us, clutching her purse like a life raft. I didn't know you'd bring a lawyer, Kim said. You didn't know a lot of things, Douglas replied, sliding a folder across the table. Like the fact that you've been legally separated for 2 years. Or that every joint account you thought existed was actually in Wyatt's name only. Or that the apartment you're still living in. He owns it. He's been covering the rent out of generosity. Kim opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, transfer documents, all dated months before the prank. Her signature on every page, usually next to a date stamp that matched one of her Instagram posts. This says, she looked up at me. You moved everything 6 months before the party. 8 months before, I corrected. The party was just confirmation that I'd made the right call. But why? We could have talked about this. We could have fixed. Fix what? My voice stayed level. You turned our marriage into content, Kim. You made me a prop in your show. That video of you humiliating me, you planned that for weeks. I saw the drafts in your phone when you left it unlocked. You scripted my humiliation. Kim's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, not the practice kind. I thought it would be funny. I thought we'd laugh about it. You thought wrong. Douglas tapped the folder. Mrs. Reynolds, your husband has been more than fair. He's paid for your apartment for 2 years. He hasn't touched your accounts or your assets. He walked away from everything you built together. But now it's time to finalize the divorce. I don't want a divorce, Kim whispered. Wyatt, please. I know I messed up. I know I was selfish and stupid and cruel. But I've changed. I've lost everything. My followers, my sponsors, my career. All of it's gone. Good, I said, meant it. Maybe now you'll learn what actually matters. You do, Kim said desperately. You matter. You always mattered. I looked at this woman I'd once loved, really looked at her, and felt nothing but pity. If I mattered, you wouldn't have needed to lose everything to figure that out. Douglas pulled out another document. Sign these, and we're done. Wyatt keeps the Montana property. You keep your accounts and the apartment for 6 more months to get on your feet. No alimony, clean break. Kim stared at the papers. What if I don't sign? Then we go to court, Douglas said calmly. And all those videos you made, all that documented evidence of emotional abuse, becomes public record. Your remaining followers will see exactly what kind of person you were. Your choice. Kim picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. I really am sorry, she said, looking at me. For all of it. I believe you, I said. But sorry doesn't fix what's broken. It just acknowledges the damage. She signed. Kim sat in her rental car outside the diner for 20 minutes after Wyatt and his attorney left. The signed divorce papers sat on the passenger seat like a death certificate for the life she'd built and destroyed. She'd failed. Failed to fix it. Failed to win it back. Failed at everything that mattered. She drove to a motel, cheap place off the highway, and spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake. The prank. The videos. The years of treating Wyatt like a supporting character in her story. The next morning, she drove to Second Chance Ranch. She didn't have a plan, just a desperate need to see him one more time. She found him behind the barn, teaching Mason how to properly sand a door frame. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that spoke of real connection, the kind she and Wyatt had lost years ago. Mason saw her first, that the ex-wife. Wyatt looked up, nodded. Yeah, Mason, take 5. The kid walked away, protective energy in his shoulders. Wyatt set down his sandpaper and faced her. I signed the papers, Kim said. I'm not here to change your mind. Then why are you here? I needed to understand something. Kim's voice trembled. How did you survive it? How did you just walk away and build this? She gestured at the ranch, at the peace evident in everything around them. How did you survive losing everything? Wyatt studied her for a long moment. The Montana wind moved between them, carrying the scent of pine and sawdust. He looked at this woman who'd once been his whole world, who'd systematically destroyed what they'd built, and he felt only clarity. You ended, he said quietly. 2 words. That was all. Kim's knees buckled. She dropped to the ground, hands hitting the dirt, sobs tearing from her chest. No, it can't be. But it was. She understood now. She hadn't just damaged their marriage. She'd ended him. Killed the man who'd loved her, who'd trusted her, who'd built a life around her. And from those ashes, he'd rebuilt himself into someone who didn't need her. You ended me, Wyatt said, his voice steady. The man you married died on that rooftop. This version of me, you have no claim to him. Kim sobbed into the dirt, mascara streaking down her face, makeup running. No filters, no angles. Just raw, ugly truth. Behind Wyatt, Mason appeared in the barn doorway. Behind Mason, Frank Donovan. Behind Frank, other volunteers. They'd heard, they'd seen, and they stood with Wyatt, a wall of silent support. A truck pulled into the lot. A woman got out, late 30s, simple clothes, warm smile. Laura Mitchell, the veterinarian from town. She walked to Wyatt's side, touched his arm gently. He nodded to her, a communication that needed no words. Kim saw it, saw the way Laura looked at Wyatt, saw the way he stood straighter beside her, saw what she'd lost and what he'd found. I'm sorry, Kim whispered from the ground. I'm so sorry. I know, Wyatt said, but sorry doesn't make you my problem anymore. He turned and walked back toward the barn, Laura beside him, Mason following. The three of them disappeared into the building, back to work, back to a life that had no space for Kim's regret. Kim stayed there on her knees in the Montana dirt for another 10 minutes, crying for the man she'd destroyed and the woman she'd been. Then she stood, wiped her face, and walked back to her rental car. 8 months later, Kim Reynolds posted a video, not to Instagram, to YouTube, unfiltered, no makeup, sitting in a modest apartment. My name is Kim Reynolds, and 2 years ago, I humiliated my husband for content. This is what happened after. The video got 5 million views. Comments were split, half sympathetic, half still angry. She didn't care about either. She started community college, studying psychology, started volunteering at a women's shelter, started building a life based on substance, not likes. Wyatt Reynolds married Laura Mitchell in a small ceremony at Second Chance Ranch. Mason Clark stood as his best man. 30 people attended. No phones allowed. No social media posts. Just two people who'd found each other after surviving their own separate wreckage. They bought a house on the Montana property Wyatt had purchased years ago, raised chickens, built furniture, lived quietly. Mason came over most weekends, learning carpentry, finding the father figure he'd needed. Douglas Shepard retired, but not before ensuring Wyatt's new identity was legally protected. The book, The Silent Exit, continued selling. Royalties went to veterans programs. One evening, sitting on their porch watching the sunset, Laura asked Wyatt if he ever thought about Kim. Sometimes, he admitted, but not with anger, just with gratitude. Gratitude. She taught me that silence isn't weakness. Walking away isn't cowardice. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave. Laura squeezed his hand. They sat in comfortable silence until the stars came out. Two people who'd learned that peace isn't found in applause. It's found in quiet moments with someone who sees you without needing you to perform. The man Kim had tried to destroy had rebuilt himself into something unbreakable, and he'd never been happier.